In July 2016, Saidagul and her family attempted to move to Kazakhstan, but the Chinese Communist Party confiscated her passport and prevented her from going with her family and husband. She experienced threats and torture by Chinese authorities and was taken to a camp from November 2017 to March 2018. But she was forced to teach Mandarin to Uyghur detainees, and she and her family now lives in Sweden, and after having fled to Kazakhstan to avoid execution. Ms. Kalpinur Sadiq. Kalpinur is also a camp survivor from Urumqi. She was a Chinese language teacher in the local primary school. In 2017, she was taken to a camp to teach Mandarin to Uyghur detainees. Kalpinur witnessed torture, sexual abuse, and violence again, and witnessed all the horrible things happening to Uyghurs inside the internment camps, and testified at the Uyghur Tribunal in London. Since 2019, she's been living in the Netherlands, where she sought asylum. Ms. Dolkun Isa, the president of the World Uyghur Congress, he's a well-known advocate for Uyghur human rights, and Isa presents to various international organizations. Despite being detained himself and deported from many countries, he continues his global advocacy. Repression against dissidents. For example, you have been on the Interpol Red Notice list from 1997 to 2018. Can you tell us more about what the Chinese transnational repression looks like and how it has impacted your life and the life of your family?
Well, thank you very much. It's okay? Thank you very much for a nice introduction, and thank you for Human Rights Watch hosting this wonderful event. Well, if you come back to your question, is China's government CCP's transnational repression is a policy have a long history, of course. I'm the one of the victim of such transnational repression. As you say, Chinese government put me to the red notes. And Interpol red notes. I had 21 years internet red notes because of this. I was detained in so many country borders, and still, even today, I cannot enter quite a lot of countries. So, of course, was red notes. Why is the Chinese government? I'm very simple, guys. Why Chinese government put me the red notes? I'm still surprising, of course, still surprising. But this red notes, one of the purpose of Chinese government trying to stop Uyghur activism. Chinese government didn't want Uyghur issue being one of the international issue. Cover it and hiding it under the table. This is the main purpose. That's why trying to block activism. Chinese government 1997 put me on the Interpol red notes. That time Chinese government didn't blame me as a terrorist. Blame killer mothers. That time, because China, before the 2001 September 11 terrorist attack in New York, Chinese government didn't use the term terrorism about Uyghur activism. Just separatism or religious fundamentalism, something like that. But at September 11 terrorist attack, Chinese government immediately changed language within 1 year. Oh, we are victim of terrorism because we are Muslim, very easy labeled as a terrorist. Then, and the Chinese government 2003 issues one long list, 11 people, Uyghur activists, 4 Uyghur organizations exit as a terrorist. So I'm number 3 of this. Then China, since 2008, my name to the Interpol are terrorists. Yes, after I left 9 years later, I'm being terrorist. So after this red notes, as I said, I was detained so many country border. I had faced to deport to China time to time. For example, 2009, it was horrible time, and I was traveling to Seoul, is South Korea. I was invited for one of the international conference, but South Korea police and stopped me. Then I was staying 4 days. I had faced deport to China. Later, WikiLeaks website reported 4 Chinese police arrived to the Seoul airport to pick up me. But finally, and strong, because I'm German citizen, because of the strong pressure, German Foreign Ministry, State Department, European Union, one side China, it was very difficult time for the South Korea government also make decision. Then finally, and I was secretly sent back to Germany. This is just example. So far, I was detained in the middle of Europe, in the Italy as of 2017, when I was go Italy for the press conference, Italian Senate. More than 20 police arrested me to put the police station, take my fingerprint. Despite of the German government protest, German government say this is political issue. We never accept this red notes. However, I was detained in Geneva. Most of my book is a China freedom trap. This my experience was not happening in China or some authoritarian country. This my experience most happening in the Western country. 3 hours. United States, I was detained 23 hours in the border United States and returned to Germany. So many countries. So it is, of course, direct impact my daily life, not only my personal daily life, my family. Since I left the country in 1994, my whole entire family in East Turkestan, they are suffering a lot. It is a monitoring 24 hours by the Chinese police. My mother died concentration camp. My 2 brothers in the sentenced to life on the long life jail. My father passed away. This is the price I already paid. Besides this, and now is Uyghur issue one of the important issue. Most of the media know, but 10 years ago, 5 years ago, nearly very few people know the Uyghur issue. And my children, my son is born in Germany, my daughter came to Germany, 3.5 years old. They went to the school. I didn't know that. That time is the Dilfire Isa Atilla Isa checks Google Isa Ho. His classmate, schoolmate discriminates them. Oh, your father is terrorist? Can you imagine? Yeah. This is an unacceptable situation. But she couldn't explain. They are very child, she couldn't explain, even she didn't ask me. So my children hate me that time. Okay, now is proud of me. But that time, she couldn't explain, and school children, and but even she didn't tell us this. Later, and is growing up just a couple of years ago, my daughter and my son sit down. Do you know we had very difficult time at the school? We have faced so many discrimination by classmates, schoolmates, but we couldn't explain. But no, we understand why you are and the Interpol red notes. Yeah. This kind of, in fact, in my personal life, family, all career. Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Isan, for continuing to speak up on this issue, despite the high price you have to pay. And now I turn to you, Kablinor. You have been an active voice as well in bringing forth the human rights abuses committed by the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party against Uyghur and other Turkic people. And your testimonies have helped the global community to better understand what is happening inside the camps. In response, the Chinese government has been trying in many ways to prevent even you as well to share your story. Can you tell us more about how the Chinese government seeks to silence you?
Just before we start, I'm going to be interpreting for Kablinor. But I just want to also put a disclaimer that I'm not a professional interpreter. So if you hear some mistakes, just bear with me. Ben Kablinor'da bir tercümanlık yapıyorum. Ben özüm kesbi tercüman olmağaçqa, bazı yerlerde hatalar olmasa sabr qilasiz. Sizga savol qo'ygan savoli siz shu guvohlikni bergandan boshlab butun shu xalqaro jamoatga olib Uyg'urlarning zulmini, irqiy qirg'inchilikni olib sizning guvohligingiz shu butun dunyoni o'g'atdi. Hem Uyghur irqiy qirg'inchilikni yaxshi tushunishga foydasi bo'ldi. Shunga endi siz uni boshlagan yog'i shu Xitoy hukumatining aktiv shaklda sizni mush to'g'riliq sizga besim silib sizning mush to'g'riliq so'z maydoningiz tirishayotdi. Mush to'g'riliq bilan tushunch berasiz.
Oldindan assalomu alaykum.
Va alaykum assalom.
Sevimli qarindoshlarım, vatandaşlarım. Ben vatanimiz Türkistan Ürümçi'den cezalı bir şahidi kalınızınız salamlar olsun. Hakikaten yukarıda etkan okşaş. Ben bütün dünyanın her kaysi devletlerinde, her kaysi parlament taşkışlar olsun, jurnalistler olsun. Uygurların zulmünü anlatıklarak ben Muş'ta olan birge, nurgulagan devletlerde şu vatanimiz Türkistan'da bulatkan, şu halkımız bulatkan, şu kırgıçılıkta Amerika başlığındaki 10'a yakın devlet Uyghur irqiy qirg'inchilik va insoniyatga qarshi jinoyat degan qarorlarni berdi. Undan keyin Amerika hukumati Uyg'urlar uchun 10 necha xil qaror chiqardi, ham buni ijro qilyotdi. Bular oldida rahmat aytaman.
Yes, as I've mentioned, yes, I have been advocating around the world, in Parliament and globally, and I have seen some positive developments over the past few years. For example, the US government and also the US Congress has officially recognized the Uyghur genocide in a resolution and also in statements, as well as in 10 parliaments around the world within the EU as well, that have recognized the Uyghur issue as genocide and also crimes against humanity. And there are legislations that are being adopted around the world, for example in the US, on this specific issue.
Ben 2019-yılda 10. ayda Gollandiyada yaşayotgan qizimning tirishchanligi va o'zimning kuch chiqishi bilan Gollandiyaga keldim. Ammo ta hozirga qadar vatanimiz Turkistondagi shu qirg'inchilik to'xtab qolgani yo'q, kamplarga taqalgani yo'q. Ben 2020 aydan boshlab guvohlik berishni boshladim. Eng dastlabki shu Guardian, BBC, CNN guvohlik chiqqandan keyin vatanimda qolib qolgan tuqqanlari va shu sobiq yo'lishim bo'lgan besim tekstlar kuchaydi. Mana bu 3-chi qatam shu vatanimizdagi Urumchi shahar Tianzan rayoni Baxilan Saqchixonadagi Livinjan. Mushu 3-chi qatam men tekst qilgan mushtaliqi videosi, surati buni men rasm tortib olgandim. Bu eng dastlabda men shunday yaxshi so'zlarni qildi. Sen yaxshi qizini qishga chiqib olding, yaxshi yashayapsan, sen biz uchun moslashib, yaxshi xizmat qilsan, yana keyin qaytib kelsang bo'laverdi. Yaxshi xizmatlar ersab, nurg'unlagan yaxshi so'zlarni qildi. Men bundan qo'shilmadim. Qo'shilmagandan keyin mana men yana qarsanglar bu tekstlarni olib kelganda, cho'qim qaytib kelmasa, vatandagi shu tuqqanlarim va yo'lishini qanday oqibat qildi o'zing o'rnidan o'ylashib qo'y degandiki shu 2021-18 kundagi so'rdi.
I was able to escape East Turkestan and China as well on October 2019 because I was Uzbek, but also because of my daughter who was a Dutch citizen. But despite me leaving the country, the genocide has not stopped with me leaving. The genocide is still ongoing. I started speaking out in January 2020. I started advocating for the rights of my people. I've started giving interviews to CNN, BBC, The Guardian, and right after this, this is a screenshot of my conversation with the police officer back in February 2021 when he called me to. In the beginning, he started to talk to me very nicely and ask for cooperation. That if I cooperated with the Chinese government, nothing would happen to me. But then as I refused, as I opposed to this, he started threatening me and intimidating me.
Şunun bilan birga yana 2026 ayning 4-kuni Angliyada o'tkazilgan Uyg'ur London sudida shundan bir kun burun, ya'ni shu vatandagi Xitoy tashqi ishlar ministri Jolijan Benim şu vatan sabık yoldaşımni video işletip, benim kalkan guvalıklarımı yağan çıkarmakçı oldu. Ve beni ro'yi jihatdan, şu müştekislardan, şu kesimlarga bardoshlik berib, ro'yi jihatdan meni sundirib, bu ishlarni to'xtatishga majbur qildi.
And one day before I testified before the Uyghur Tribunal on June 3rd, 2021, the Chinese Foreign Ministry threatened me, and they've forcibly they used my husband against me, and we were obliged to get a divorce.
Bundan keyin şu yakında, yani 20 Mart, ben Dünya Uyghur Tilini İçki İşler Komitesi'ndeki reisi, nima lideri, bizning Ömer Qanat takımımızdaki teşkilatı bilen, şu yerdeki teşkilatlarla uğraşı bilen ben Amerika'ya bardım. 6 April qaytdim, bu yerda 15 günlük faoliyatim hakikaten bek yaxshi kuchli bo'ldi. Bu tajovuz Xitoy hokimiyatiga dahshatli bir zarba bo'ldi. 6 April qaytib keldim. 10 April vatanda qolgandim. En suyumli, en mehribon kuyimchan şu akamdan ayrılgandan xabarni oldi. Akam faqat tunayt zukam ve yutal sababini doktorxonaga kirib qolgan. 2 kundan keyin yani 10. Sakin onun tugab ketganlik xabarini berib, onu o'ligini topshirib bergan shu tuqqanimizga. Ben bunu 11. Sakini tushda xabar topdi. Bu xabar topgandan keyin ko'nglim haqiqatan bek yerim bo'ldi. Çünkü gerçi ben 2 yıl jarayonida tuqqanlarni ko'rishadigan bo'lsam-mu, ammo shu vatanda tog'dek uylanchigim, akam bardab yurgim butun juratdi. Ammo Xitoy shundoq qasd qilib mendan o'ch oldi. Shuning uchun men bir şey deymanki, nurg'un xalqlarimiz, men yana shu butun dunyo muhojiratdagi xalqimizga rahmat aytaman. Menga nurg'un telefonlarni berdi, menga WhatsAppdan so'zlarni qoldirdi, menga ko'p madad berdi, xolis duolarni qildi. O'shalarning duolarini barakatlab yuribdiman. Xudoyim biz Allah yordamchimiz bo'lsin ki bizni cho'qim shu uchimizni oldigan, xalq qarzimiz qisasimiz oldigan kunlar cho'qim keldi deb o'ylayman.
On the invitation of our executive chairman of the World Youth Congress, Mr. Umar Khanat in the U.S., I was invited to a trip in the United States where I have testified on March 20, and I have returned on April 6th. And it was a very successful trip. We testified before Congress, before different committees, and it was very difficult for the Chinese Communist Party because this was covered in international news. But however, when I returned, I learned the death of my older brother on April 11th, where he spent 2 days in the hospital for a cold and eventually died. So it was a very difficult moment for me because it felt like it was the Chinese government sending me a message. And with this, going through this really difficult time, I have received enormous support from the wider international Uyghur community, and I am really grateful for them. And I know that one day we will get our chance to have accountability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kalvino, for sharing your story with us and with the world, for all the hard work you do to testify and advocate. You have been so brave to speak up to many governments and journalists over the years, and we are so grateful to have you here. Also, thank you to Somata that I forgot to mention in the beginning for helping us with the translation and all the work you do in the World Uyghur Congress. I would now like to turn to our second camp survivor, Sairagul. As a camp survivor, you have also witnessed when the Chinese government in 2016 introduced new measures which called for termination of all mother language schoolings. As a teacher inside the camps, teaching detainees Mandarin to Chinese, were they allowed to speak in Uyghur or their mother tongue? And were there any punitive measures taken against them?
Endi növbət Sarıgül xanım gəldi. Siz bu lager şahid disputunuzda, bu lagerların içində siz bu bir oxutucu səlahiyyətinizdə 2016-da bizning Şərq Türkistanda til bulutmun Uyğur tilini yo'qotishga qo'ygan qonunlari masalan şahid bo'ldingiz. Siz lagerda o'qituvchilik qilgan vaqtimizda lagerning ichida tutilganlar Uyg'urcha so'zlandi yoki Xitoycha majbur so'zlandi.
Assalomu alaykum. Barliq shakti O'zbekistonda qarindoshlar. Sizlarni bu yerda ko'rib pek xush bo'ldim. Ko'p rahmat. Yana Human Rights Watch tashkilotiga va o'zimning alqishimni bildiraman. O'sha bir muhim faoliyatda o'rnashtirgan uchun ko'p rahmat.
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. It is nice to see you all here, and I also want to express my gratitude for Human Rights Watch hosting this event.
Bu bir millatni yo'qotish uchun albatta uning tilini yo'qotish kerak. Bu tilni yo'qotish siyosati 2006-yili boshlangan.
First of all, to erase peoples or nations, you first have to erase their language. And this policy started in 2016.
Bu Xitoy partiyasi tilni yo'qotish uchun ular qo'sh til degan yolg'on ma'rifni yo'lga qo'ydi. Bular qo'sh til deganda mundaq tushuntirdi. Xitoy tilini o'qish bilan birga o'zining ona tilini 30% o'zining ona tilini o'qishga bo'ladi degan bano bilan bizning tilimizni yo'qotishni boshladi. Amaliyotda bu butunlay bu rasmiy yurgan vaqtda bu butunlay 100% Xitoycha o'qitish.
The Chinese Communist Party often speaks about the bilingual education programs, which on paper means Chinese having access to Chinese education, but also having at the same time education in your mother tongue. 30% education in your mother tongue. But when you look at the reality of the situation, this policy means or translates into 100% Chinese education.
O vaqtda Uyg'ur tilidagi, Qozoq tilidagi maktablarning hammasini bular taqib bularni Xitoy maktablariga qo'shdi. Shunday qilib bizning tilimizni yo'qotdi.
So they started completely closing schools in offering Uyghur education, Kazakh education. So all these schools were closed and the students were transferred to Chinese schools.
And men ishlagan lagerda ma'lum bo'lib ishlagan vaqtda u yerda qamalganlar har millatning vakillari, jamiyatning har soyasidan odamlar bordi. Uyg'urlar, Qozoqlar, Qirg'izlar yana boshqa Şəbətdə yasayılğan xalqın vəkilləri bütünlüy yalğan töhmətlər bilan aşağılarga qamalğan.
When it comes to the camp in which I've worked, there were all kinds of people. There were Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and other people, and who were all serving different sentences on fabricated charges.
Andan o lagerdə özünün dilində sözləydigan heç qanday mümkünçülük yox. Əgər özünün dilində sözləydigan bolsa, bu texi senin cinayətinin üstüge texmi ağır cinayət olub artılardı. Onda adamlar özünün cinindən ayrılıb qalardı. Bunun axirəti pek ağır idi. Şuna görə biz bütünlüy Xitay dilində sözləydik.
There were really severe and heavy punitive measures if you spoke your mother tongue. It was almost considered as a criminal act, so you just could not speak your mother tongue. So everyone was forced to speak in Chinese, in Mandarin Chinese.
Thank you so much, Saragul, for also sharing your story with us. We are very grateful to have you here. And Mons, now I turn to you. We've heard the testimonies, and Human Rights Watch has published several reports on the abuse against Uyghurs. Can you briefly explain how you work in Human Rights Watch to promote the rights of Uyghurs and to hold China accountable?
Okay, thank you very much. First, I must say I'm honored to be here among this distinguished panel. Welcome to Sweden for you, and it's very moving and strong to hear your testimonies. I'm just an observer. But it's a great honor to be here tonight in this panel with you. I just want to say that. Thank you very much. As has been said, the Chinese repression in Xinjiang, I will use the word Xinjiang because that is what Human Rights Watch uses in our reports, have been ongoing for decades. This is not a new phenomenon, but as we said, it raised in 2016, and we started to document it in the first report that came out in 2018, so almost 5 years ago. And it was called Eradicating Ideological Viruses. And you know very well what this is about, and as has been explained, this is a Chinese of eradicating the ideology, the culture, and personality of an entire population. So it's a very fundamental threat to the religious culture and to the entire society. It was combined in the report a high technological surveillance with a very low technological hands-on surveillance. And a very, very strong repressive system. We have every year come up with new reports documenting different aspects of the repression. And we have seen how China started with totally denying the existence of the camps. But as evidence grew stronger, we documented with satellite imagery, construction, new construction sites, the growing number of displacement camps or re-education camps, or some call them concentration camps. We call them re-education camps, or they are different purposes, but in Human Rights Watch reports you would see the word re-education camps. We know from the reports we have used to backtrack the apps that the Chinese security police use, that it's extensive information gathering on each and every individual in the region. And so the amount of repression and surveillance is unusually high. And we made an assessment, a legal assessment, that we look at the requisite of the crime, we look at the action, and we draw the conclusion that China commits crimes against humanity. And this is the gravest crime you can commit in human rights law. It's one of the crimes of the Rome Statute. So it's a very, very serious allegation. The world continued to deny. We saw it was very, very difficult to get states to condemn China behavior. And this comes back to something that we have been criticizing for many years, that what is a China exceptionalism. We're not saying that China should be punished harder than any other state, but what other state could forcibly detain over 1 million people of their population and just get away with it? So we say that China should be held to account like any other state. There should be independent, impartial, international investigations into the crimes that China is committing. That's everything we're asking for. So it's not anything less than any other state will be held accountable for. So this modest you could say claim or request was formulated in 2019 for the first time by states. They were so afraid that they didn't even dare to speak out. So they just handed in a paper to the Secretariat of the United Nations because they knew that there might be pushback. But we've seen a growing number of states being more and more bolder. So in the end of 2019, for the first time, we saw a group of states coming together to claim accountability, asking for UN investigation. And this number has been growing and growing and growing ever since. So there was a larger number in 2020, 21, 22. So what we see is a growing awareness of the international community that this is a serious problem that China needs to be held accountable for. But it's we're like in the middle of a big battle. So it's by no means any victory gains, but we managed to open the eyes of the international community, but we still need to see action. So that's what we saw last year, and you are well aware of this, that the United Nations High Commissioner, Michelle Bachelet, made a trip to Xinjiang, and after she finished the trip, she made remarks that were very, very bad. She was heavily criticized by many governments, by many organizations. Many organizations called for her to resign. But then she said that she was working on a report, but it took time. And just 1 hour before she resigned, at the end of August, she threw in the report and she ran away. So then we had a report on the table for governments that was quite heavy. It was very, very strong. It was the strongest report so far from the United Nations, and documenting exactly what we have been saying for 5 years. That there are crimes against humanity ongoing, committed by China, and states need to do something. They need to start by appointing a UN investigation. So that was what we call a window of opportunity. It took maybe states by surprise, and there were also a difficulty that session because Russia was also one of the P5, difficult to hold them accountable in the United Nations system. But there was a decision on Russia that was unprecedented to set up a special rapporteur, and maybe the international community didn't have the power to do both Russia and China at the same time. So the China vote on Xinjiang lost by just 2 votes, 17 to 19, but or 18 actually. Ukraine joined afterwards. But it shows that there is a growing number of countries that really dare to step up and criticize and even take tough decisions on such a powerful country as China. So we believe that there is hope. More needs to be done, but we think that there is still momentum. We will continue to push for the UN to take the only right step to appoint an international investigations to make sure that there is justice and accountability for all the victims of the crimes against humanity in Xinjiang.
Thank you, Ross. And speaking on accountability and Sweden, Sweden is currently the holder of the EU presidency and the president of the Council of the European Union. What can Sweden do to hold China accountable through the EU? Yeah.
Well, I think that Sweden can do many things. I mean, one thing we need Sweden to do is to protest politically. And we have seen cases of Swedish citizens being kidnapped outside China, brought to China, and being detained unlawfully, where Sweden is not protesting in the way that we need them to protest. So the case of Gui Minhai is quite famous in Sweden, and Sweden has been treating this as a consular issue. It needs to be elevated to a political issue, and they need to say that the behavior of China has political consequences. Cancel visits, cancel conferences, don't do these political visits until the citizen is treated fairly and free. And I think that needs to happen also in the case of Xinjiang and the treatment of Uyghurs. That it needs to be stronger political consequences. We know that it's difficult for countries to speak up against China. We saw what happened to Norway in the case of Liu Xiaobo. They were put in the freezer, in the political freezer for 10 years. And it's difficult for a small country. So we say that there needs to be safety in numbers. So the EU should be like the first player. But we still think that Sweden has been weaker than the EU, actually, when it comes to raising Gui Minhai's case and advocating for his freedom. So I think working for, there is now a revision of the EU-China strategy coming up. Sweden needs to make sure that respect of fundamental international law, which is human rights, it's a core part of international obligations, must be a core part of the EU and China relations, that they respect the same international rules, both when it comes to other issues like environment or borders or human rights. But also, we believe that there are some very important actors outside the government scale, and that is the corporate sector. And we have seen a proposal for what we call human rights and environmental due diligence. It's a corporate social due diligence directive, quite complicated, but it means that companies need to make sure that there is no human rights abuses in their own actions and in the value chain. That means that they need to investigate into the factories they buy goods from or where they purchase the services from. That will put the pressure on the corporate sector to be tougher and to put questions to the Chinese business partners what's happening in for example, in Xinjiang. There's another legislation. I won't talk too much about boring EU legislation, but it's an important act. And maybe you saw the US passing the what we call the Uyghur Modern Slavery Act.
Forced
Labor Act, yes. And it's a similar legislation in the European Union, being proposed by the Commission last fall, which is a regulation prohibiting any kind of trading with goods that has been manufactured with forced labor. And this is, of course, targeting not only the cotton. We know 20% of the world's cotton comes from China, and almost 90% of Chinese cotton comes from Xinjiang. So this would mean that any factory, any product, any company that is connected with forced labor goods would be banned inside the EU. It's quite powerful, and it's something that's just being presented, but we want the Swedish presidency to push this forward, start negotiating in the council level, and make sure that we have a decision before there are parliamentary elections coming up in 2024. Well, we want to have a decision before we change the parliament. Otherwise, it's almost a year that could be lost. So when it comes to the due diligence directive, we had a decision this week from the parliament. Very good. Now it's up to the ministers and the council to take their decision, and maybe we can have like a proper legislation in place this summer. For the forced labor regulation, it will probably take another year, but at least there's some progress.
Thank you so much, Mons, for explaining more about the European context. And Mr. Isa, I would like to ask you a similar question. You're here in Sweden this week doing advocacy. You've been speaking to many politicians and stakeholders. And which role can Sweden have, in your opinion? Do you think that policymakers should put more pressure on Swedish companies to ensure that they do not profit from Uyghur forced labor that Mons mentioned?
Yeah, this is the important question. Of course, that's why we are this time we are a delegation and visiting however visiting Sweden, and the reason of we pushing the policymakers and the government should be take their responsibility. And Sweden, as a presidency of the EU, Sweden can do more. But unfortunately, so far, none of them, Scandinavian country, including Sweden, not adopted any crime against humanity or genocide motion. So far, 10 national parliament plus European Parliament recognized genocide motion, but none of them Scandinavian country. As we know, maybe wrong, maybe right, Sweden is the one of the leader of the Scandinavian country. So that's why Sweden first is a lawmaker must be recognized Uyghur genocide or crime against humanity. So that's why since Monday, last for 3-4 days, we had a meeting different political party, nearly all political party, and the Foreign Affairs Committee, Human Rights Committee. We raise awareness, and then we asking them should first raise awareness, because so far in the Swedish Parliament or Foreign Affairs Committee or Human Rights Committee or any committee, has not yet organized an official hearing. Yeah, no? So this is our request, but however this time we got strong support at the CC, and we will see in the future, of course, what is the implementation. So, and the Swedish government also can do something. International level, we are happy, Swedish government and the UN level very active to sign joint statement. Last October, 50 countries made joint statement condemning China's policy against Uyghurs. Sweden is one of the important countries to sign it. But it's not good enough, only sign. We have to see some visible action. As we know, several Swedish company continue has a business with China, and this company has a direct link with Uyghur forced labor. Each of the aim is a Swedish company, it's good, and they remove and they stop the buying cotton from Uzbekistan, from Uyghur forced labor. It is good step. So other companies also should be following this. But unfortunately, not only Sweden, also Europe, and some US and some Western company, international brand, continue profit of the Uyghur blood, we can say. So if no, it is not correct time, business as usual. This business should be shut down. This business should not be gone. Is any company today have a business with China, particularly in Uzbekistan? It is the complicity of the genocide. You know, it is not the time to silence, or it is not the time of business as usual, because people are dying. This is not human rights issue. This is human rights violation happening everywhere, but level is different. Human rights problem exists in Sweden, Germany, United States, everywhere, but genocide was not taking place everywhere. Today, genocide taking place in the Uzbekistan for the Uyghur, Kazakh, as the speaking people. So that's why Swedish government can must be do more. First step should be parliament lawmaker recognize Uyghur genocide motion. Then policymaker make pressure to the government to concrete action. We are happy. European Union 2022, European Union, our country, and also plus UK, Canada, United States, sanctioned for high-level Chinese Communist Party leadership. It is a good step. But China immediately counter-sanctioned more lawmakers, even think tank, also expert researchers. So Human Rights Watch, of course, entity, yes, welcome. Because I am a section person 20 years. Yeah, so this is the reality. So Sweden or other European country or entire, at least Western democracy should be stand strong voice, you know. Is China, if you show more, is a dialogue and or just let's say shows respect, it's not playing major role for the China. China's CCP mentality is only understand the power. You know? So that's why we asking Swedish government and not only the government and the parliament, but also Swedish people also. Because stop ongoing genocide is a moral obligation of human being. So this is what I mean.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dr. Nisan. And I'll turn to you, Kalbina. What do you expect from the Swedish and international community?
Hazır Hanım, sizin şu Şivetsiye devletin ve halkara cemaati tutulan.
Ben aldılar Şivetsiye hükümetinin, şu parlamentinin kütüdüğünü Amerika başındaki Avrupa'daki okşaş, muşalarla mı Xitay hükümetinin Uygurlar zapaşın kırgınçılığını, irqi kırgınçılık ve insaniyet karşınayet degan kararını verişini ümit kılman. Hem ikinciden şu Xitay bilan bo'layotgan savdo aloqasi iqtisodiyotni uzishni umid qilaman. Chunki şu Xitoydan kelayotgan har qanday mal shu yerdagi qo'l emgak zavodidan kelgan, shu yerdagi shu Uyg'ur xalqimizni majbur emgakda qo'l zavodidan kelgan shu mollarni boykot qilishni umid qilaman. Sizlarniki shu Xitoyniki, tajovuz Xitoyniki shu jinoyatiga sherik bo'lib qolmasliklarini umid qilaman.
My first and foremost demand is that the Swedish government can formally recognize the Uyghur genocide, just like in the United States and many parliaments around the world. And my second demand would be no business as usual. That we cannot become, as a society, as consumers, become complicit in atrocity crimes. So I do implore Sweden to boycott these products, to not be complicit.
Thank you so much. And as we're coming to an end of our panel discussion, I would like to ask you the final question, Sayrakul. What would you like to tell the Swedish people going forward? Why does it matter that they speak in support of Uyghurs?
En axırda Sayrakul xanım sizi soraydigan sualım, siz şu Şivettsiyədəki turlayotgan dövlət, şu xalqqa həm dövlətə deyilgan gepiniz, tələbiniz, anadaki nimişlə Uyghur meselesini, yani Uygurlarını qo'llashga, Uyghur Kazak başkalarını qo'llashimiz kerak.
Ben azından Şivetsiye hükümetiga, parlamentga, müşavir xalqqa, müşavir turayotgan barcha Sharqiy Turkistondagi xalqqa rahmatimni aytaman. Men Şivetsiyaga kelgandan keyin andan demokratiyaning qanday bo'lganligini, odamning bir o'zining hurmati bilan yashashning qanday bo'lganligini müşavir kelib
First of all, I want to thank everyone in Sweden. I want to thank the government, but also the people, and also all my people as well. I have learned what democracy really meant once I moved to Sweden. I have learned how to live with human dignity and these free values.
Men talep qildiganim shu boshqa qildirishimga o'xshash Shvetsiya parlamentiga o'xshash boshqa davlatlar, Amerika, Stor Britaniya, shu davlatlarga o'xshash 10 necha davlat o'sha hozir irqiy qirg'inchilik deb rasmiy e'tirof qildi. Shularga o'xshash bu Xitoyning bu jinoyatni irqiy qirg'inchilik deb rasmiy e'tirof qilishni umid qilaman.
Just like my other fellow colleagues, I also want to urge the Swedish government and parliament to also recognize that we were this ongoing atrocities as genocide, just like in the US and also the other EU countries, including the UK and others.
Ondan Şərqi Türkistan halkı, şu zulümge uçuravatkan Şərqi Türkistan halkına yardım kılış, bu birinciden bu hakkaniyetle süydüğün her bir adam, her bir devletinin insani borcu.
And in terms of your second question, why should we help and support the people of East Turkestan? I think that we should support the truth. We should support human dignity and humanity.
İkinciden, 70 neçə yıllık aldıda, İkinci Dünyavi Urushdan keyin halkara sistemi kuruldu. Bu sistemde bunda tragediya endi qaytlanmaydi deb biz va'da bergan. Lekin 2021 asr kelgan vaqtda bu Xitoy Kompartiyasi qo'li bilan bu tragediya butun dunyo sahnasida qaytlanmayotdi. Şərqi Türkistan halkına erkek qirg'inchilik, insoniyatga qarshi jinoyatni yurgizmayotdi. Demek bu biz va'da bergan ish qaytlandi degan gap.
After the Second World War, the international community came up with a system, rule-based order, and also they promised never again. However, in the 21st century, we are witnessing another tragedy, and we are witnessing these crimes against humanity and genocide.
Onda bo'lsa shu xalqaro sistemaga amal qilish har bir demokrat davlatning qilishga tegishli ishi.
This is why it is the duty and responsibility of the international community to respect and act according to this international rule-based order.
Dördüncüden Şərqi Türkistan meselesi, o fakat Xitoy Kompartiyasının Şərqi Türkistan hakkında yurgizayotgan fojiasi deb qaramaslik kerak. Yana bu Amerika bilan Xitoy o'tirishidagi urush deb qaramaslik kerak, masala deb qaramaslik kerak. Şərqi Türkistan meselesi bu dunyoviy masala.
And it is not true that we should be thinking about this issue as just an issue that concerns only us. This is an issue that is beyond just China and the US. This is an issue that concerns all of us.
Beşinciden Xitoy Kompartiyasının rezil planı o en ahırkı planı bütün dünya hoş buluş. Hazır Xitoy Kompartiyası Şərqi Türkistan'daki bu Uyghur, Kazak, Kırgız, Tatarlı başı halkka evli kırgınçılık yürüzüp yokutumen de bu yokutuş planını işle aşırısı bilen bizler bütün dünyaya ben yeniden bir tüzlük ornutumen de vardır.
The aim of the Chinese government by carrying out this genocide against us is to also impose their rules, their norms to the international community, to change the current rule-based order to the one that they know and that they have imposed.
Xitoy allburun dünyanın demokratiyasıga ve erkinlikке jang e'lon qildi. Hozir demokratiya yo'q deman, nima erkinlikni yo'q deman, adam o'zdan boshqaradigan, o'zdan kontrol qiladigan bir yangi dunyoviy tartibni o'rnatdi. Butun dunyoga men hujjat bo'laman deb aytdim.
The Chinese government has declared a war against democracy and freedom, and they're trying to impose their own definition of what the system should look like.
Şu başka Şərqi Türkistan meselesi bu dünyavi mesele. Şərqi Türkistan meselesi bu bütün dünyadaki her bir bu erkinlikte demokrasiya söylediğin her bir adamın gelecek için nayeti mühim olan bir mesele.
This is why this issue is not only our issue, but it's a global issue that concerns every single person who loves democracy and freedom.
Bu noktadan qaraganda bizning Şərqi Türkistan halkına çoxum yardım qilishimiz kerak. Yana bu Şərqi Türkistandagi erkek qirg'inchilikni to'xtatganlar butun dunyoda bir xotirjamlik, butun dunyoda bir yaxshi tinchlik bo'ladi. Agar Şərqi Türkistanda bu pacha to'xtamaydigan bo'lsa, butun dunyoda xotirjamlik bo'lmaydi. Rahmat.
It is only by supporting the people of East Turkestan that the global community can have peace and security. Without it, it would be the opposite. Thank you.
Tack så mycket, Sairagur. thank you so much for reminding us all why this is a global matter. And before I thank our fantastic panel for sharing their experience and their expertise with us, I would like to open up for you in the audience if you have any questions to our panelists. Then you can just raise your hands or wave.
Suallar bo'lsa.
Suallarınlar bo'lsa biz shu hozir hammaga savol bermoqchimiz. Shunga agar savollar bo'lsa, qo'llarni ko'tarsanlar mikrofon olib beramiz.
And you can ask in the preferred language. We'll make sure to translate.
Thank you so much. I'd like to ask Alvira and Sarah about the role of the many countries which are Muslim majority countries. What are their role? What are their responsibilities? Or is this a lost battle? What are your thoughts? Thank you.
Çıkılarının sorman suali, Müslüman devletlerinin bu ilgi kılgınsı kararında rolü bir olsaydı.
Menimcha Müslüman devletleri sükut durmasdan en aldı bilen şular ülgü bulup aşılar asıl çıkış gerekti. Çünkü biz hem bir dindaş, hem bir kaliptaş dep oylaymiz, hem bir kayrindaş dep hesaplaymiz. Bular hiç olmaganda ilgi çıkanmısı mı? Şu bizning vatanimizdagi muqaddas Qur'on kitoblarimizga, şu çekilayotgan masjidlarimizga, şu bizning ulug' oyatlarimizning darslarni bo'lishga ilgi chiqqan bo'lsa, nayt yaxshi bo'lardi. Afsus, to'limi afsus, ular texnik sukut turibdi.
Instead of staying silent, actually, the Muslim majority countries should have the responsibility, should have led the global, should have given a global response on this issue. If not for our sake, they should have thought about the Qurans that are being burnt, the mosques that are being destroyed. But unfortunately, they have stayed silent on this issue.
Mening qarashimcha, bu musulmon davlatlar birinchidan bular inson bo'lish sifati bilan, undan ikkinchidan musulmon bo'lish sifati bilan bu jinoyatni ko'rib turib ko'z yummaslik kerak.
I believe that these countries or the officials in these countries should first act as human beings, and then secondly act as Muslims. But they cannot be silent in front of genocide.
Biroq afsuski bu yerda har bir davlat, masalan diktator davlatlarni deylik, ba'zi bir diktator davlatlar ular oldi bilan o'ylaydigani o'zining mushu siyosiy kuchini saqlab qolish, unda o siyosiy kuchni saqlab qolish uchun qanday qilish kerak? Cho'qim Xitoyga tayinish kerak. Bu birinchi nuqta. Ikkinchi nuqta, bu yerda insonning zulmga uchrayotgan insonlarning taqdiri emas, bu yerda bir ekonomist nima mushu hammadan ustun turganlikdan, mushuni ustun qo'yganlikdan, mushu yana nurg'unlagan nimalar bor, bu yerda omillar bor. Bir so'zlab o'tmayman, mushu sabablardan afsuski ular biz tarafda turolmadi, aqlli tarafda turolmadi.
Unfortunately, the reality is that they wanted to preserve their political power, and they have also, instead of helping the fate of their Muslim brothers and sisters, they have chosen the economic opportunities, and they view this as more important than saving us.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Over here.
Assalomu alaykum o'shaga Uyg'urlarning masalasini yo'qotish uchun kelgan barliq qatnashchilar bilan rahmatni aytaman. Jasur lager shoirlarga o'zimniki hurmatini va salomimni yo'llayman. Dunyo Uyg'ur qurultiyi raisi doktor hisobidan bir savolim sizlar. Dunyo Uyg'ur qurultiyi bu suhbatlar bilan deb o'tgandek musulmon va turk millatlarniki shu davlatlarniki bizning Sharq Turkiston masalasiga ko'ngil bilmasdan irqiy qirg'inchilik bo'layotsa ular ovoz berishni voz kechib Xitoy tarafdori Xitoyniki tarafini tutib xalqaro siyosatda Xitoy yonbosqanlik uchun qandoq buni Xitoy qarshi harakat o'tkazish uchun qandoq planlar va yoki shularni Xitoy qarshi harakat o'tkazish uchun qanday bir planlar bor bundan keyin va qanday faoliyatlarni elib berish o'ylayapsizlar?
I will just quickly translate this question. First of all, I want to thank our brave camp survivors for their testimonies, and also I wanted to ask about the World Congress's upcoming plans and also campaigns to mobilize support within the Muslim majority world. What are you planning to do in ensuring that they support Uyghurs and not China?
Okay. Yes, it's a good question. Hello? Hello, yes. Yeah, my colleague and the camp survivor already talking about some reaction of the Muslim world. It's really a shame. There is several of reasons, but from my view, there is two important reasons why Muslim world is support China or silence. First is of course economic reason, yes, and another important reason is most of this country is authoritarian country. They have also human rights problem, discrimination and linguistic, other and race minority, yes, and disappearance, for example, Saudi Arabia, Iran, yes, all. So this is the reason. So they are complicit with China, partners with China. We are doing advocacy as UN, Human Council. We have very clearly seen and witnessed this countries support each other, partner each other, hiding their own crimes each others. This is the reason. So yes, but however, all responsibility, we have to do something. We have to continue trying advocacy work. It is difficult. It is difficult because China promised them a lot. China gives them money to them, but we cannot give anything. You know. So, but however, it is a humanity problem. It is not religious problem. It is not some other problem. It is even not a human rights problem. It is already beyond the human rights problem. So that's why we have to continue doing advocacy. And the future plan of the World Congress advocacy will, and for example, we already make some plan 2023. We are trying to some advocacy tour global south, including Muslim country. We already started last month. Or colleague or delegation or some other Uyghur organization already traveled to Malaysia during the Ramadan time. Malaysia and Indonesia, they had a high-level meeting with them. For example, meet with Anwar Ibrahim, Prime Minister of Malaysia, last week, because Malaysia was last time during the Uyghur resolution of the UN Human Rights Council. Malaysia, the position was abstain. Indonesia was support China, not silence. So this type of group of friends visiting the countries, have a high-level official and the civil society to use through this way, and pushing them should be change the position. So we are planning to travel to the African country, Latin American country, some of the Muslim country. We are trying to advocate, of course. We have to our job, and we will see, of course. And another strategy, we will contact Muslim society in the Europe, civil society, and the United States globally, because we, as Uyghurs community, we don't have a strong, in fact, such Muslim country. Except Turkey, some Saudi Arabia, there is no Uyghur community, no Uyghur organization. So we don't have such a capacity to continue constantly doing the advocacy. So So we have some capacity and possibility in the UK and Germany or some other European country, Canada, and Australia, and the United States. There is a huge Muslim community support us. At the beginning, they are silent, but now, after our advocacy work, now we got strong supporter from the Uyghur Muslim community. So, but this Muslim community have a close link with the origin country. So we use this community, and we are trying to push the origin Muslim countries, the government, and we are doing some impact on this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dokonisa, and thank you all for coming here on a Thursday evening. Thank you for your commitment, and thank you to our eminent panel and camp survivors who shared your stories with us, and for all the hard work you do to bring justice to Uyghur people. And we're standing up human rights. Thank you so much. And being on the panel will now close the panel discussion, but you are most welcome to stay and mingle and continue asking questions to the panelists. Thank you so much.